Jain will moderate the talk. He will start the discussion. He will field a few questions. After that, it will be left open to the members to ask questions. Only I would request a few things. Since many members have expressed desire to ask questions, keep questions, one question per person. Please don't make opinions. Don't ask controversial questions. No opinions, please. Please ask pointed questions. Because we don't want the embarrassment like last time. After you ask, give your long-winded opinion and question, the speaker should not turn around and ask, what is the question? So please avoid that. Please ask pointed questions. Don't give opinions, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Yes?
At the outset, on behalf of Sir, it's indeed a great pleasure to have you here today. We have senior colleagues of the Indian Administrative Service who are present here. Our outgoing Chief Secretary, Mr. Kaushik Mukherjee, our newly appointed and highly distinguished Chief Secretary, Mr. Arvind Jadhav, the much loved President of our association, Mr. Ravi Kumar, Secretary of the Association, Mr. Pankaj Pandey, senior colleagues, their family, friends, and my dear friends. It's indeed a great honor to have you amidst us today. We consider it a divine opportunity with your gracious presence. Being close to you is to feel something truly special, sir. And it's my privilege to extend a very warm welcome. May I request a senior member of our service, Ms. Vandita Prasad, to present a bouquet to His Highness the Dalai Lama.
Please sit. It is such an honor, such a privilege. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Careful, careful.
Sir, I still recall very vividly when Mr. Kharola and I came to seek your blessings in 1993 in Mundgod, sir.
see.
Yes, sir. And the warmth of your handshake still feels as real and fresh, sir. Your childlike laughter still rings in our ears. And the blessings that you gave us, sir, they still illuminate our lives. And it is your innocent smile, your childlike laughter, your compassion, which are the instruments of your teaching, and they are so potent, so effective, sir. Sir, your teachings, you're a global phenomenon. I don't need to introduce you to the gathering. We all know about you, sir. We've all read about you. We have all followed the path that you've taken through the years. And your contribution to world peace and spreading the message of compassion is indeed well known to everyone. I don't wish to come between you and the members of our service, but your simple teachings are very, very universal and relevant even to the civil servants, sir. So you've said that your religion is kindness, sir. You've said that the prime purpose of all of us here is to help others and not to hurt others, sir. You've said that happiness is not ready-made, but it has to come from your action, and that change can only come from action, not just prayers, sir. All this has a lot of relevance to the civil servants, and we really admire your openness with which you have integrated science with religion, that the long-held scientific, the religious beliefs should be put to the test of science, and you should share your insights on the workings of the mind and how you've analyzed it from the scientific point of view in your address today, sir. Sir, in today...
Yes.
So we have young officers here today who are full of exuberance and enthusiasm. We have senior officers, retired officers who are full of our own bureaucratic version of wisdom and compassion. Some of us, you may find a dash of cynicism and skepticism, sir, but all that is not inborn. It has come because of the compulsions of the service, sir. May I now request you to kindly address and bless and guide us through our actions, and please, we will leave some time for interaction after your address, because there are a lot of people who have lots of questions to ask which are engaging them in their personal and professional lives, sir.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, it's on.
I see. Oh, okay. Brothers, sisters, of course, indeed. I'm very happy mixing with some elder brothers, sisters, as well as some younger brothers, sisters. I always believe we all part of humanity. That's a fundamental level. As a matter of fact, 7 billion human beings, same human being. Different country, different religious faith. There's a different sort of color, different color of hair. I think best thing is I think all human beings become Gomara.
Maybe bald.
Then no difference of color of hair. So and different countries, different language. These, I believe, secondary level. We all 7 billion, fundamental level, we are same human being. You see, it seems quite clear, a lot of problems which we are facing, not only in past history, but even today. I think most of these, usually I call man-made problem. These are entirely, let's say, based on secondary level of differences. So now I think if we really concern these problems, including killing, the worst thing in the name of religion and name of different national interest, killing. I think usually when we see something, some sort of event, say, oh, one human being killed by tiger or killed by elephant, we feel little sort of a little uncomfortable. But then, nowadays, I think human being killed by human being sometimes seems normal. That must change. Every human being loves their life. And every human being have a right to exist happily. Right? That's our basic right. So therefore, when we are facing a lot of problems, of course, nature disaster, these directly we have not much sort of control. But long run, you see, our behavior, our lifestyle also is, according to some scientists, also is some sort of connection. But these violence, killing, the exploitation, corruptions, all these we too much consider, firstly, secondary level of differences, and then furthermore, extreme self-centered attitude. You see, that causing even same community, same rich people, exploitation, bully. I'm, people call Dalai Lama. So I can easily manipulate with my name a religious faith to follow, take some money or some sort of the exploitation. So all these self-centered attitude, even religious people. Oh, sorry. Okay. I think it seems to me quite sufficient because of the sound, right? If may I say so, your own ear may not be very strong. So therefore, I have sort of conviction. Now time comes, we have to make effort to promote sense of oneness of 7 billion human beings. I fully committed to that. A number of scientists, you see, having that view among the scientists, you see, I found, you see, real internationalism. No? You see, I found that. You see, that's good. It's not much sort of consider the importance of different nationality. Maybe some countries may be different. But so far, you see, those scientists whom I know, you see, they really have I think, a very good spirit as a human being. So that's my commitment. But I believe all 7 billion human beings actually have the responsibility to think about humanity. Humanity happy. Each individual will be happy. If humanity, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, distrust, and then individual cannot escape. So for individual's own interest, we have to think about humanity. We have to build happy century, peaceful century, ultimately compassionate century, irrespective whether believer or non-believer. So on that level, I'm very happy to see meeting with brothers, sisters, and particularly so you are the Khasa Dimitri, Leisure Khasa. Oh, service. Oh. So then, India, I think historically, India, of course my knowledge is still limited, but it seems to see among 3 civilizations, Egyptian civilization, or civilization in that part of the world, and civilization in China, and then civilization of Indus Valley, originally Indian civilization, come from there. So among these 3 civilizations, it seems, I think, Indus Valley civilization, I think eventually, highly developed. So certain philosophical views, not only Buddhism, but also is a non-Buddhist sort of a different sort of Hindu traditions, including Jains. Very sophisticated sort of philosophy and a concept about reality. And then certainly many Nalanda masters, their mind really, I think, such a sharp. So they investigate, thinking, without laboratory. Now, quantum physicists, they found, one time, Raja Ramana, late Raja Ramana, we gathered one occasion in Delhi. He told me the quantum physics in the world, in the West, something new. But he found Nagarjuna's writing, that's about 2,000 years ago, the concept about quantum physics already there. So he mentioned to me, as an Indian, he really feels proud. Such sort of very sophisticated sort of concept already developed in this country 2,000 years ago. So it's quite, I think, the Khasa Dimitri. Indus Valley civilization, I think among these three civilizations, I think actually India civilization, I think highly developed. I think this civilization really produced, I think, wonderful philosophers, thinkers, including Buddha, like that. But then modern India, now today, most populated democratic country. Although some problems here and there, it's quite natural. Around 1 billion human population, some mischievous people must be there, otherwise not human society. So that's understandable. But overall, I think India, compare neighboring states, I think most peaceful or stable, I think wonderful. So that's, I think, the greatness of India. So you see, actually, because of the carry some sort of the service, right? So I think you can make, I think, a significant contribution. Firstly, preservation of your own country's, so as the ancient knowledge. That I feel, you see, quite critical. Sometimes I jokingly telling, modern Indians too much westernized. Particularly it is for this service. Of course, the modern education, mainly come from West, is a Western education, highly necessary, relevant, and with technology, all these sort of modern things, very much sort of relevant to today's world. India also is a highly needy to these things. At the same time, now those materially affluent nations like United States or many European countries, now number of people, through their own experience, they begin to feel material value, there is some kind of limitation. Material value fail or no guarantee to bring inner peace. So this country, I think, have the potential to fulfill that because of the vacuum way. So now modern Indian, please pay more attention about your 1,000-year-old your tradition. Not pujas or rituals. That's okay. Some people carry that. But the science of mind or knowledge about mind, about emotion, ancient Indian psychology, highly developed. Sometimes I publicly also, among the scientists also, I usually say, express, they compare ancient Indian psychology, modern psychology looks like kindergarten level. Really, Indian psychology highly developed. So these are very relevant to today's world. World where some kind of moral crisis there. You see, they tackle that. Prayer, not the right method. Sometimes I usually see expressing, if this problem created by God, then you have to pray a certain sort of form of appeal to God. Please solve this problem. But this problem we created, not God created. If we have some opportunity to see God, then God may say, You created these problems. You have the responsibility to solve this problem. So we created these problems, and meantime, pray to God, please solve these problems. Please bring peace, 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 peace. Who created violence? We create, not God created.
Very right, sir.
So therefore, it's a prayer. Very good. Just those people also who really feel something very sort of beneficial. Okay, very good. Some rituals. But I think Indian public, I think, should pay more attention about knowledge of mind, emotion, and how to tackle these emotions. That's ancient Indian psychology. Very important. Irrespective whether believer or non-believer. Among believer, whether Buddhist or non-Buddhist or even Christian, Muslim, see, it doesn't matter. I think Muslim, Christian, not much sort of mentioned about these sort of, about human psychology, these things. But they're also human beings. If we, if we present using this knowledge as a part of academic, not a religion, then I think our other sort of spiritual brothers, sisters also, can learn like that. I notice in Ladakh, some Muslim school children, they also attend. Those Ladakhi school children. They carry certain sort of dialectic sort of debate like that. Some Muslim children also participated like that. So these are, we should not present these things part of Buddhism or part of religion. Then it makes a certain boundary. So psychology, knowledge about mind, about emotion, and knowledge about reality. These are just an academic subject. I try to, now you mentioned also, because I'm a scientist also. Over 30 years, I have sort of serious discussion with modern scientists, mainly 4 fields: cosmology, neurobiology, then physics, including quantum physics, then psychology. These 4 fields. You see, these are common ground, common subject we can discuss. And as far as sort of cosmology in these fields, we learned many useful information. It's immense help to us as a Buddhist. And some Buddhist literature mentioned about world flat and the sun and the moon almost same size, the same distance. Silly. I already took the liberty to reject these things. So, you see, very, very helpful to learn from modern scientific finding. Some deeper philosophical views, such as some connection with quantum physics, you see, they really found Buddhist scholars over 2,000 years already developed that concept. And usually we call the Madhyamika, middle way, abandon both extreme, like that. So quantum physics, you see, nothing objectively exists. Then what is existence? Not clear. I think over 2,000 years, the Buddhist masters, they already through their investigation, they already have some answer. yes, nothing exists by objectively, Buddhist word, not independently. Absence of independent existence there. That does not mean nothingness. Things are working, things are there. So that Buddhist, particularly Madhyamaka philosophy, they consider, say there is no other option, right, except mere designation. And designated, also you see, Tanya Vasamashini Minava.
So things which are said to be designated, and they are not undermined by the valid cognitions, valid knowledge.
Oh, that's, I think the quantum physicist, you say, not yet sort of developed that kind of sort of view. So they find, you say, oh, nothing. And then meantime, they always say, observer, observer, observer. What is observer? Difficult, isn't it? Like that. So therefore, and then particularly the field of psychology. There are now over 30 years of experience. Many scientists really very much impressed the knowledge about ancient Indian sort of psychology, right? Knowledge about mind, emotion, like that. So now, conclusion is, you, as a respected Indian brothers, sisters, now we have to think seriously. You see, this country, while you are carrying the modern education and modern technology, all these sort of, because of the scientific knowledge, it's highly sort of relevant, important, and mainly in economy field of these things, you're really very, very important. Now since independence, now education, public education, I think much sort of because of the developed. Right? Now every small village, we can see school. Now, for example, this morning, when I come from Kasadi, Belapudi, see, about 7:30, and I passing through, it's a small children. They carry some bag, and everywhere. You see, these are, now I think in modern India, I think education, generally speaking, I think really wonderful. But still, we need in countryside. I always say, express and with concern, the development should not sort of concentrate on big cities, but we must develop in rural area. Majority of Indians are farmers and because of the countryside. So real transformation of India must take place in rural area. Now people in Delhi, for example, now and in Bangalore also, I think to some extent, I think now begin to complain about pollutions, isn't it? In Delhi, very bad, isn't it? Yeah. So now time come, you see, not concentrate one area. Now, look, you see, Bangalore here. I first came to Bangalore 1956, Buddha Jayanti celebration. At that time, you see, Bangalore, not overcrowded and quite clean, very good. Nowadays, quite crowded and a little bit dirty also. So, you see, we must now concentrate the rural area. Then, I think 2 years, 1 year ago, really, Delhi took such a
Sankisa, 1 year ago.
1 year ago, such meeting.
Sankisa in UP.
One important sort of Buddhist site. The concerned people invited me. I went there. Delhi, quite close, I think, 4 hours drive. When we enter that area, the countryside, village area, weather very clean, fresh air. There I mentioned, and also I met one UB and the chief minister, I think, or some ministers also I met. So I suggest to them, so you must build that area more, better facility, hotel or like that. Then I think people in Delhi, so when they really too much sort of exhaustion, then they will come, and you can charge more higher. Yeah. like that. So I think countryside, I think we must sort of pay more attention, development in the rural area, education, and because of the health, and some universities I think should build in this countryside, I really feel. And then also you see cinema and some other sort of modern facility, if necessary, nightclub. In rural area, I think we should put some restriction. The nightclub must close about 10:30 or 11. Then you see, the next day, those farmers can work properly. Otherwise, the whole night, you see, spent like that. Then the next day, I think sleeping. So like that. So therefore, so now some kind of a combination, modern education, modern facility. Meantime, bring back your 1,000-year-old your sort of knowledge about inner value. That is directly related with inner peace. Material development provide us physical comfort. Ancient Indian sort of knowledge about mind, emotion, these things built on bring inner peace. Then India can be, I think, model country. So that I always stress. And of course, now last over 56 years, India is my home. And I usually consider now I am son of India. Although this physical, born in Tibet, in a very remote area, southeast Tibet, but since my age, since age 25, I become refugee here. Now, over nearly now 81 years old. So I think best part of my life spent in this country. And then, furthermore, I usually describe the longest guest of Indian government. So as the guest of Indian government, now I'm paying back. So I carry the ancient Indian knowledge as a messenger of India. Wherever I go, I always talk. And then India's, I say, the 1,000-year-old your concept of ahimsa. Very important, very relevant. And then with that, 1,000-year-old India's religious harmony. Wonderful, really wonderful. Particularly now, today's world, the conflict in the name of religion. Then this 1,000-year-old sort of India's tradition, very populated nation, but quite peaceful. Generally, I think very peaceful. I think Indian Muslim, Indian, you see, from their childhood, they already take for granted there are different religions. Like that. I noticed the Indian Muslim, then Malaysian Muslim, Indonesian Muslim. You see, because, you see, there are, in Malaysia, large number of Chinese. Most of these Chinese are Buddhist, and then also Hindus. So those Muslim who, from childhood, this is some sort of Kasoda contact. It's in these different religious tradition there. Even in Indonesia, also there are some Hindus and also some small Buddhists. Then historically, the Indonesia, some part is Kasoda. I think one time Kasoda, Buddhism very much flourished, and many Buddhist temples there. So you see there, the mentality a little bit different. Then those country were only Muslim. Then you see they sometimes a little bit so because of that difficult. Because you see they lack of awareness. So India, I think, really can make significant sort of contribution. I always mentioning India is example where all different world, different religious traditions live together beside homegrown religion. But from outside, Zoroastrian, very well sort of settled in Bombay area. Very small population, less than 100,000, but no fear, no threat, isn't it? I think Manekshaw and Tata and some other, I think, the individual who really make immense sort of contribution for the country from that small community, isn't it? So that's one example. Then large number of Muslims here and Christians. You see, basically, it's no problem. So therefore, I think India is really a good example. Different traditions can live together with mutual respect. And through some knowledge, then mutual admiration, like that. Yes, that's my talk. Now questions.
So, thank you, Your Holiness, for your kind words. Thank you for adopting India as your home. And a double thank you for adopting Karnataka as your second home. You've been coming to Mundgod and Bailkuppe and Bangalore for so long. It's indeed a privilege to have you here. So,
Then I think for to South Indian, I also usually have some nice things to say. That is most as far as most brilliant Nalanda masters. Most of them come from South India. So sometimes I, in the north, sometimes I jokingly, you see, teasing, you see, some northern, my friend in North India, oh, South Indian brain is something very special.
so thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
So you've been very kind and generous in acknowledging the little contribution that we make in making our country peaceful and stable, sir. I assure you on behalf of everyone, we will continue to work to make what the call that you gave of having the compassionate century, sir. Sir, as the moderator, it's my privilege to ask you two questions, and then I'll throw open the floor for all the participants, sir. My first question is, what is your advice to the civil servants, sir? We face a lot of ups and downs in the service. Sometimes there is adversity. Some of us respond by losing hope. Some of us fight and perish, sir. And some of us, we fight and learn to live with the system. But when we have these ups and downs, what would be the correct and desirable response to such situations? Without any fault, sometimes we have to suffer. So what should the response be, sir?
That's a difficult question. I don't know. You see, what is the causes, ups and downs? The general sort of ups and downs, I think basically, you see, most of human beings, and particularly I think those kasoda, more kasoda, I don't know. more influential or I don't know, more responsibility people have, you see, there quite often ups and downs. Sorry. So, it's my own sort of experience. You see, I think a lot of difficulties in my lifetime. But important is believe truth. And you yourself carry your life, your responsibility truthfully, honestly. That brings inner self-confidence. Self-confidence brings inner strength. That's the basis of hope. You yourself, you see, carrying your life a little bit sort of a strange way, as something to hide and to speak something nice, thinking something different. And then always deep inside some weakness, less self-confidence. So then I think when ups and downs happen, then too much worry, much sort of disturbance in our mind. But if you remain truthful, honestly, transparently, then much easier to tackle these problems. And here, 8th century's great Indian master, 8th century, he mentioned when we face some problem, think, analyze the problem. If through analyzation, the problem which we can solve, then no need worry, make effort. If the problem which we cannot solve, beyond our control, then no use too much worry, useless. I think that's very realistic sort of advice. So the person, great philosopher, his name is Shantadeva. Whether he's South Indian, North Indian, I don't know. Surat, Gujarat. Oh, then more or less South Indian. South Indian, yes, South Indian. Like that. So I usually thinking this line. I think, firstly, you yourself, you should be truthful, honest. So, number of cases, meeting some Chinese, at the beginning, sort of a little bit sort of because of distance. And then talk. Then discuss about these problems. Then, I think human level, as I mentioned earlier, human level, eventually trust come. Human level, trust come. Then secondary level of differences, then not much causing problem. Human level, distrust, suspicion. Then, very difficult. That's my experience. But then, it's a particular sort of case, then you have to judge. The Buddha, I think here, one Buddha's sort of advice, you are your own master. So you have to think, you have to analyze the situation, the cause of ups and downs. Then, I think here, again, as I mentioned earlier, altruism, altruistic mind, a really immense help like that. Next question.
So in the name of religion, sometimes we see that there's a lot of violence, conflict, and in that sense, religion can be said to create more problems than solutions. So is it possible that religiousness, in terms of the universal values of compassion, non-violence, can exist without the label of religion? Can there be just pure values and no label of religion? And do you see yourself playing a role in moving in that direction, sir?
Again, this is India's tradition, secular. Although some Indian professors said, when I some discussions with them because now we are working the draft about secular ethics, which can be fit in secular education field. So you see, regarding that, there's some discussions. Some occasion, you see, there's some Indian professors, they, you see, told me the very word secular is now a little bit sort of not very clear. So I don't know. But I usually is carrying secular, and consider India's own constitution based on secular principle. So according to Indian sort of understanding about secular, is not only respect different religious tradition, but also respect a non-believer. One of my great sort of friend, he actually the name, his name, Advani, former Deputy Prime Minister. I know him. One way I very much attracted his physical condition. I think over 80 years old, what's his kasa. And he goes not like my leg, he go like that. Bajpai, very difficult. Very difficult. Modi, of course, comparatively much younger now, isn't it? No, like that. So therefore, one time, some discussion about secular with Advani. He told me, see, he made sort of one example, the Charvaka school of thought. Charvaka, it's a nihilism. Do not accept, you see, any spiritual value. So, the rest of Indian different spiritual school of thought criticize that, so that also they thought, Charvaka school of thought. However, when mentioning the person who have the view of Charvaka, is described sage, or kasati, rikshi. So sage. That shows respect. He told me that. So I often, you see, took his sort of quote, his word like that. So that I really feel, really sort of also very wise. When we talk, when we concern, you see, 7 billion human beings, out of 7 billion, over 1 billion human being non-believer. You see, these we cannot exclude. These also part of humanity. They also have right to achieve happy life. Whether believe religion or not, that's up to individuals. I usually call individuals' business. Our common responsibility is build happy world. In order to build compassionate world, firstly, individual themselves should have some sort of conviction about the value of compassion. That, you see, so individual should be compassionate person. Then there is real hope to build compassionate world, compassionate century. So therefore, these also the spiritual, these sort of like compassion. If we totally relying on religious concept, then these non-believer, there's no way to introduce or to educate. So therefore, again, it's India's tradition, secular concept. That's, I think, not only ancient Indian sort of Indian sort of thought, but very relevant to today's world. So I promoting the compassion, forgiveness, these basic human value based on secular. So like that.
Thank you, sir.
What is your main point?
Yes, sir. About, in the name of, can there be religiousness without religion?
So therefore,
Yes, sir.
now religion, it seems to me, three aspects,
Yes, sir.
every religion. One aspect, dharma, religion. That is bring inner peace. So that's the teaching of compassion. With that, tolerance, forgiveness, contentment, and self-discipline. That aspect of religion, all common, same. Islam, it's a very much emphasis, compassion. All major religious traditions, when they describe their God, Allah, or Shivaji, all, you say, consider the form of infinite love. So therefore, all major religious traditions carrying same sort of message of love. Second aspect is philosophy. Here, big differences. Firstly, theistic religion, that means accept creator. Another group, Jainism, Buddhism, and one part of Sankhyaism, no concept of creator, but rather self-creation. So basically, two categories. One theistic religion, one non-theistic religion. And the philosophical viewpoint, these philosophical views, big differences. But we must ask, what's the purpose of these different philosophy? Same aim, same purpose, to promote compassion, to bring, to increase firm conviction about the value of compassion. So then, all different philosophy itself, fully contradiction. One say there is creator, God. One say no God. So from the theistic viewpoint, the Buddhists are nihilism, no God, no creator. From the Buddhist viewpoint or Jainism viewpoint, those people who believe creator is Trondolota.
They have fallen into the extreme of exaggeration. So, from the Buddhist point of view, these other traditions and following the theistic religions traditions would be considered as having fallen into the extreme of exaggeration or eternalism.
So purely philosophical sort of field, that there is contradiction. But then we must also put question, why? What is the purpose? As I mentioned earlier, same purpose, to bring conviction about the value of compassion. Many of my Christian, because of the brothers, sisters, when they pray to God, tear comes. It's very strong, single-pointed faith. Result, they are very compassionate, serving. They, like Mother Teresa, totally dedicated, say, serving poor people, other people. Such sort of wonderful sort of enthusiasm brought by their faith, her faith, like that. And then one time, soon after Khomeini, Iran's sort of revolution, one of my friend one Indian sort of journalist who are working in Kasachudi, Mare, who for Far East Asia economy. So once, you see, one occasion, you see, he came to see me, and he told me, while outside the world, you see, get very negative sort of report. He mentioned a genuine Muslim practitioner, you see, must extend love towards entire creature of Allah. Wonderful. And then, according to these Muslims, they say, if person who follow Islam create bloodshed, then the reality no longer Islam practitioner. This is a former Chief Minister of Jammu Kashmir,
Farooq Abdullah.
Farooq Abdullah. I know, you see, three generations. Sheikh Abdullah, Farooq Abdullah,
Omar
Mullah, Omar Abdullah. Three Chief Minister, three generations. So, Farooq Abdullah once told me, while we discussed these things, you see, he mentioned, actually the meaning of jihad is not some other, but your destructive emotion compared with destructive emotion. That's the real meaning of jihad. Later I discussed one professor of Islam in New York. He also, you see, mentioned that as a professor, like that. So therefore, different sort of philosophical views, actually different way to approach the practice of love. You see, different country or different area, you see, including climate and lifestyle, different. So, naturally, some differences in mental disposition. So, we need different way of approach in order to bring conviction or enthusiasm about practice of love. So then, okay, no problem. Even within Buddha's own follower, you see, there are many different schools of thought, you see, taught by Buddha himself. So sometimes I jokingly, you see, telling, you see, from one source, one teacher, you see, contradictory philosophy mentioned. This does not mean Buddha's own mind, not very certain, not very clear. So one day he mentioned something, next day he mentioned something. Not that. Nor Buddha deliberately tried to create more confusion among his follower. No. Then, what is the reason? The contradictory philosophy taught by one teacher, same teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. Because among his follower, there are different mental disposition. So to some people, certain philosophy, as I mentioned earlier, Madhyamika philosophy, they say, looks also nothing there, as appears, nothing. So that, to some people, that teaching really gets some kind of nihilism. Therefore, for such people, Buddha taught something different. Mind is independent, absolute. Matter is not not exist as appears, like that. So, different philosophy, according to different mental disposition, he mentioned. So this we understand, yes, now today's world, out of 6 billion human beings who believe something, there are different mental dispositions, so we need different way of approach. Then third aspect, it seems cultural aspect. Here, I think, different location. Some my friend, you see, mentioned to me, when Jain master Mahavira come, at that time, the immense animal sacrifice, see, took place. So, such sort of extent, even economy also, because of the hurt, harmed like that. So, such period, Mahavira come. So, because of that sort of circumstances, his special emphasis, ahimsa and vegetarianism, should not eat meat. No? Like that.
I'm a Jain, sir, by birth.
Oh, then I think I should not mention that. I think.
No, thank you, sir. I need reminding.
I really admire, you see, these Jain practitioners. I think really, sometimes even more stricter than Buddhist monk. Right? Like that.
Thank you, sir.
Like that. So, and then Buddha, I think, after the Mahavira come, after I think around 40 years after that, Buddha come. More or less same emphasis, like that. Then look, I think, Judaism. There's a certain sort of difficult circumstances, hostile circumstances. I don't know its detail. Sometimes you see certain sort of emphasis. Eye for eye or something, isn't it? Eye to survey.
Eye for an
Eye for eye, like that. Little bit sort of tough, sort of, because of the concept like that. And then Jesus Christ, I think, more compassionate. If one should hit here, you should this. Really, practice of tolerance, like that. And then Islam. I think when Muhammad came, I think their community more or less nomad. As far as I know, if something wrong, you should carry some research work. So the nomad usually is not much rule, isn't it? Like that. So therefore, there's some criminal things there, some crimes there. So he emphasizes Sharia law according to circumstances. So therefore, and then Buddhism, as a Buddha basically give equality, male and female. So bhikshu and bhikshuni. But at the same time, as a senior bhikshuni must respect young bhikshus. So there is a little sort of because of the discrimination on the level of sex, right? Like that. So therefore, you see these, I think at that time, the society, Indian society, is a male-dominant society, isn't it?
Yes.
So Buddha, some extent, just accept the existent sort of society, sort of habit. So now, religion side, no need kasada, kasajukti, modification, practice of love. Human nature. You see, again, I want to share with you some scientists, they carry experiment. You know, cartoon. I also saw that also the kasajukti, cartoon. One meeting, I think in America or South, I think America. So, you see, very, very young infant child, about 4 months old, language not yet developed. To such young, innocent, infant, innocent child, show one cartoon cartoon. So one cartoon, two children play with affection. When that cartoon shows to their child, smiling, express joyfulness, happy. Another sort of cartoon, two children, little bit negative attitude each other. When that cartoon is show, you see that child, little bit uncomfortable sort of expression. So they say, basic human nature is more compassionate. When I heard that, I really felt, oh, now this is the basis of our hope. 7 billion human beings, we all come from childhood. All received maximum affection from their parent, particularly from their mother. Everyone, you see, Kasota received mother's affection, mother's milk. One time in New Delhi, one religious, so the interfaith, my great friend since 1956, the Dr. Karan Singh, Maharaja Kashmir, he is representing Hindu. I was there, one Muslim, a wonderful person, and then Christian, the Bishop Tutu's daughter. So 4 of us, you see what I mean. Then, of course, beside us sort of talk, and I jokingly, you see, told the Maharaja, as far as you see, receiving maximum affection from and mother's milk, I just religious child. You, Raja's son, in the palace. So I think as far as receiving maximum mother's milk, mother's affection, I'm more fortunate. Villager, nothing to play, and always carry my mother's shoulder, and always sucking my mother's milk. The Raja, maybe in big building, house, I think a queen, I mean his mother, oh, I'm too high. This is feeding, you see that milk. I receive as a human being, as a young child, I think I am more fortunate than him. The material facility, all these, he is much much better way, much like that. So, all 7 billion, all those troublemakers, including those troublemakers, when they are children, when they are young, all same. When I'm passing through, you see people, school children, even school children, the younger one, always smiling me. I also see like that and smile. A little older, sometimes something like that. Then those elder brothers, sisters, you see sometimes, you see quite a rare smile. I think at young age, basic human nature is very much alive. Mm-hmm. They don't care what is their faith, what is their family background, what is their nationalities. They don't care. So long, play together, smiling, isn't it? Now we must preserve that.
Yes.
Then there's no problem. We grown up. So here, I think existing education system, I think should have the responsibility. Very young age, this basic human nature is very much alive because it directly relevant their today's life, day-to-day life, and their growth. Again, you see some scientists mentioned after birth, next few weeks, mother's physical touch is crucial factor for proper development of child's brain That's scientists say. And then, of course, now some scientists say, constant anger, fear, actually eating our immune system. So calm mind through more compassionate mind is immense sort of important for physical health. So therefore, basic human nature is more compassionate. So now, our education should include purely, strictly based on secular concept, so that it can cover 7 billion human beings. So that I think now, actually some group, including myself, we are working that I think within the next few months, I think we may finalize as a draft. So then further sort of discussion. In America, I think more than 10 different cities, they already have the name of kindness, city of kindness. So accordingly, so they also used to carry more activities about kindness or loving kindness, these things. So they already found, you see, school children within the sort of city of kindness. They carry more activities, although you see because of curriculum not yet sort of developed. They have no sort of such curriculum, but they often talk about value of kindness, these things. As a result, school children more peaceful, like that. So, I think in a way, I think India should develop first with that. It's very relevant. But now already some American cities already got the name of Kasajuti, kindness, city of kindness, like that. So now there are now people who are really working out of sort of their experience. Now, education, very good education, but education very much oriented about material value. So still, even school children or college children sometimes shooting. A lot of sort of violence happening. So in America now, gun control, that's one very important issue. Then some occasion I express, ultimate gun control is here. Once you have respect of others' life, then that is the real gun control. Unless we deal here through laws, through law, just gun control, difficult, like that. Next question?
Sir, thank you. Thank you for a very insightful, very persuasive and from the heart response, sir. We'll have questions now from
Yes.
the audience.
Yes.
And like Mr. Ravi Kumar reminded, that let's keep our questions very brief, pointed, and let's listen with an attitude that the answers will change our lives. May we have the first question?
Yes. Merhaba.
Pranam to Your Holiness. I heard very carefully, and I've been really lucky, privileged to be here in this audience today, because it has been a tremendous learning experience for me. My question, sir, is, we live in a community, we live in a society, we live in this country, and I am very proud to be a part of this civilization. I am very proud and very blessed to have good education. But sir, you mentioned that a lot of all of this needs to be imparted to the young minds through education. Education is one part of change that we want to achieve, that we want to bring. As Gandhiji said, that if you want to bring change, you yourself have to be that change agent. How do we make,
Gaza, individual.
Your question.
Yes, yes.
as he said, how do we make, now comes my question, how do we make people understand the language of compassion, love, which has to come from within? The heart has to be able to think on those lines. The mind has to be able to sift the right from the wrong. Sir, your message has come across to all of us, but in a country as vast as ours, with so much diversity, how do we make this happen?
So, you see, Kasoda, as I mentioned earlier, you see a group of people, including myself, now who are really fully committed, making draft about the secular ethics purely on secular basis. From kindergarten level up to university level, we're already working. So in here, firstly, these initiatives come from scientists. Many of these scientists, some religious believer, but most of them non-believer. So this concept and full cooperation with me, I think majority of them are non-religious believer. So we are working, I think the existing education is very much oriented about material value, not much talking about inner value. These good school, including I think Catholic schools or these things, I think education just oriented as existing education system. Then moral issues, then they rely on Bible or religious sort of concept. So then, you see, when India got independence, this nation is a multi-religious nation. So moral education is important. Moral principle is very important. But, you see, relying on one religion, then this country, multi-religious sort of country, so difficult. Therefore, you see, they prefer secular. So now, time comes, we have to work to introduce education, to the way to educate. Educate means awareness. Education, not just to repeat what book mentioned. Book, informer. You should analyze and experiment. So therefore, I think the education about secular ethics, also you see, as I mentioned earlier, mainly our common experience, mainly use our common experience, the common sense, then scientific finding. That's the basis to make awareness from kindergarten level up to university level in order to bring inner calmness, you see. Firstly, I usually call map of emotion. We need more information about the system of our emotion. Sometimes I also, you see, describe, we learned in education about hygiene of physical. So similarly, now time come, hygiene of emotion in education field. Not talking about next life, not talking about God or Buddha like that. Simply how to be a healthy person, healthy both in both sense, healthy body, healthy mind. healthy emotion. So through that kind of education, the education or information based on scientific finding, then I think children should get more conviction up to university level. So that's my view.
Thank you. Have another question? Yes, sir.
You can sit.
Your Holiness, my question is, how do you perceive the steady decline in moral values? Is it real, or is it only our misconceived perception? And it has always been there so, and every civilization then throws up some course correction in due course.
Karza. Actually, now this country, I think India, basically a religious-minded nation. I think every family, I think majority of them, I think they carry puja or something, isn't it? Or statue of Ganesh or some other, or Shivalinga or like that. I think yet, you see, there are sort of problem of corruptions. In China, there's immense corruption there. It is quite understandable, quite understandable. You see, they are not talking about inner value, these things. India, religious-minded nation, so corruption is just something contradiction. But in any way, you see, all these, I feel, as I mentioned earlier, when we keep, if we keep the real human value at a young age, as I mentioned earlier, alive, and education further sort of nurture these value, then I think sense of oneness of humanity also come through education. And that the basis of compassion. So that's, I think, antidote of too much self-centered sort of attitude. And then we and they, these things. So I think basically, we are human beings, as I mentioned earlier. From childhood, we all have these moral things there. The basis of root of these moral things there. But then the generation who go through that kind of education, not much talking about this value, and then the generation who come through that kind of education, their whole lifestyle is materialistic life. Not much talk about this inner value. Then religious sort of thing, carry moral principle, that a little bit isolated. These religious things not necessarily relevant day-to-day life, isn't it? So that's my view.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I've been advised that we have run out of time.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you, sir.
I think last I think about 3 weeks.
Okay. Can
You
we
see-
have one last question? Yes, sir. Mr. Kaushik Mukherjee.
I think a few more questions.
I have a very simple
No
question.
problem. Huh?
My question is extremely simple. Buddha attained enlightenment sitting under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya.
Yes.
Is there any description of the enlightenment that he obtained?
Kasa. Oh, then at least, you see, we have this sort of, I consider textbook, all translated from India, about 300 volumes. So we study these books, and many commentary wrote by Tibetans, I think several 10,000 volumes. So So such a vast subject, just a few words. And frankly speaking, who have not much concept in these things, then almost impossible to explain. I think maybe I may sort of tell it this way. One Buddha's main message, including, you see, the concept of Buddha nature, Tadakata Garba, or Sungata Shindaya, Sanskrit word. So that is referring our mind. Anger, hatred, attachment come and become very strong, but not remain permanently. If anger remains permanent, then anger and compassion is just opposite. So one person cannot experience at different time both, but we always experience one occasion anger, one occasion loving kindness. So basic our mind is neutral, pure. So that we call Buddha nature. So all these defilements, or destructive emotions are due to certain sort of factor. It become very strong. But basic nature of mind is still like water, pure. With other element, sometimes very sort of muddy or ice. But basic nature of water is pure. Something like that. Basic mind is pure. So there is possibility. All those sort of destructive emotions are not the nature of basic mind. So can eliminate, can reduce, then finally can eliminate. So basic mind, all these destructive emotion completely eliminated. That's Buddha's mind.
Thank you, sir.
So like that. So I always mentioning, we are student, we are chela of Indian Guru. All these Buddhist masters, particularly Nalanda. So we are chela. Actually, you are our Guru. So a little bit, unfortunately, Guru forget these things.
That's the truth, sir.
So, Chela, now, is over 1,000 years, we kept these things.
Got it.
So now really, fortunately, number of Indians now really showing interest about these ancient yoga knowledge. So it seems now Indian, as our traditionally our Guru, now also you want to keep your position as a Guru. So you have to study this knowledge, isn't it? Like that. That you will not lose your position as a Guru.
Sir,
And
thank
then also you see, I jokingly telling people, whole Buddhist world, now in this case, we Tibetan is a follower of Buddha Dharma, and particularly we are a follower of Nalanda tradition. So all those Nalanda masters and Buddha himself are Indian. Millions of Hindus, Indians, you see, worship Shivaji, Lord Shiva. You see, Lord Shiva's permanent residence is inside Tibet, not in India. So Lord Shivaji, as far as his residence is concerned, he is Tibetan. So Buddhist master, Buddha, Indian. Your Lord Shivaji has a permanent residence in Tibet, so I consider Tibetan deity, Tibetan God, Tibetan Lord. So we have some historically, spiritually very, very close link.
So thank you, sir. Thank you. You spoke like a true bodhisattva. We were immensely honored to have you here, sir, today. You gave us the message of compassion, and we will cherish this day forever, sir. I mean, I firmly believe that if there is divinity that anyone can feel or see or touch or experience, it is only in the living presence of a person like you, sir. So thank you very much. And may I now request Mrs. Ratnaprabha to present the Bodhi tree to His Holiness as a mark of our reverence.
I, as a Buddhist,
Yes, sir.
Buddhist student, a student of Nalanda Masters, and also I am Buddhist monk, Buddhist bhikshu. So you see, I want to share
Yes, sir.
one aspect of Buddha.
Yes,
No.
please, sir.
I'm not sure. What you said? One sentence. You see, the Buddha tree. Actually, I think the one unique thing about Buddha Dharma, about Buddhism, particularly according to Nalanda tradition, I think one my own experience or history about 40 years ago. Although since my childhood I have sort of keen interest about modern science. Then after come to India about 40 years ago, that was 1960s or early 70s like that. Then I seriously thinking, meeting with scientists. At that time, my friend, one American, who already followed Buddhism. And that person, you see, I just share my sort of hope and my view. And that person, you see, warned me, oh, be careful. Science is killer of religion. Be careful. That also reminds me, 1954, September, I went to Peking to participate in the Chinese National Congress as one member of Tibetan delegation. So then next, I think about 5 months, 5 to 6 months, I remained in Peking. During that period, I met Chairman Mao Zedong several occasions. So eventually, we developed some kind of relation, father and son. He really loves me. He really trusts me. So one occasion, he actually told me, your mind, your thinking is very scientific. So then Chairman Mao Zedong told me, religion is opium. So, like that is the general impression. But then, I reflect. When my friend used to say, science is killer of religion. Then I thought, then one Buddha's own quotation, "Oh, my follower, bhikshus, scholars, should not accept my teaching out of faith, out of devotion, but rather thorough investigation and experiment." Then I felt, so then like some Nalanda master, they actually rejected some Buddha's own teaching. If you accept this teaching, it goes against reason. So therefore, we should not accept that teaching. So as I mentioned earlier, I, as a follower of Nalanda tradition, I already reject the existence of Mount Meru. Some people, Mount Kailash is the Mount Meru. So I don't know. So in any way, you see, the Abhidhammakosha Karika, the younger brother of Arya Asanga, great scholar. You see, he wrote one as a text, the Kasariminti, Abhidhammakosha Karika. So the third chapter mentioned about world flat in the center, Mount Meru. From Bodh Gaya, it's a certain distance, some mountains, some lakes, and then further north, and then it's Mount Meru, like that. And as I mentioned earlier, you see the sun and the moon, it's the same level, goes around the Mount Meru, and more or less same size. So sometimes with respect, I jokingly tell him that when Vasubandhu wrote these books, you see, his eyesight not very good. So you see, when a little bit clouded day, you see, look sun. Oh, the size, sun and the moon, almost same. He have no sort of knowledge, you see, how much difference of distance. So he mentioned that like that. So with respect, sometimes I make a little bit joke, the Vasubandhu, great sort of scholar. So we have liberty to reject. If certain things against sort of scientific finding, like that. So then I thought, there's no problem. If certain Buddhist concept, such as Mount Meru, goes against the scientific finding, then we have the liberty to accept the reality, reject, you see, the Buddhist text. Okay. That's, I think, quite something quite unique.
Very revolutionary.
Quite unique,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Very revolutionary.
So therefore, you are the descendants of Nalanda masters, particularly those South Indian Nalanda masters, like Nagarjuna, Aryadeva, Buddhapalita, and Karadi, Dignac, Dharmakirti, Chandrakirti, all these great masters. They are really, one aspect their sort of thing, their thinking is a very scientific way of thinking. So that's why, I have full sort of conviction. Oh, meeting with scientists and discuss. So as a result of discussion with scientists, one casualty is I am now Buddhist monk, no longer believe flat world or Mount Meru. This doesn't matter. The Four Noble Truths, the 37 Kasa, Arya Kasa, 37 practice. These are really fundamental Buddhist message dealing with our life. These are,
Not whether the
you
world
see,
is flat or not.
sometimes many years ago, I think 30 years ago, 30, no, I think nearly 40 years ago, you see, one occasion I mentioned Buddha, very purpose of Buddha's appearances on this planet, not making geography, right? A measurement of geography. Buddha, main purpose of coming world is try to remove our fundamental, our ignorance. Ignorance is the causes of our suffering.
Thank you.
Like that. So
Thank you, sir.
now Bodhi tree.
Let's all stand up in honor of our very special guest today. It's an uplifting occasion. Thank you.
You're the